Hello, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Very good, very good.
Good.
Yeah, how's the weather out there?
Rain, rain,
Oh,
rain, rain.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
In California, who'd have
yeah.
thought?
Well, hey, it's we get 13 inches a year if we need it or not.
What do you get, like ten days a year it rains out there?
Something like that. I mean, it's yeah. When it rains, people don't know what to do. So
Yeah, it's like a snowstorm out here, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, what happens is that people play bumper cars with their cars, and they do silly things. So good. So I see that you've adjusted. Looks like you're in your home office. So
Yes, yeah. Actually in the dining room.
ah, there
So,
you go. Good.
uh, So, yeah, I got the chance to read your book and take some of the recommendations. So, this is all something that I've been thinking about
Yep.
for a little while. I've been thinking that, people who are adjusted when we come out of the end of this virus thing are going to be at an advantage.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I've been doing remote work for many years, and in fact, have worked to set up companies and do what. So remote work is kind of like a little tip of a bigger iceberg that most people don't even know about, which is called virtualization. This book really doesn't cover that. But what we did is in the midst of launching the book that you and I had talked about, because we launched it officially on March the 17th, which is
Position
like,
to win. I have a copy. So
yeah, yeah.
we're sharing it around the office too.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. So, and by the way, we can use as many five-star reviews on Amazon as we can get. But
I'll
so
alert
anyway,
the crew.
yeah, shameless plea. But the interesting thing about it is that while we were doing that, Gabe and I sat down and I said, there's this whole coronavirus thing happening, and he had flown out to Southern California from Dallas, and we were spending some time together. And the last thing we want to do is write another book because we just spent 2 years of our life writing the first book.
Right.
And
How did you get it together so quick?
well, that's it. And I guess we can take this footage that we have right here and turn it into the interview
Yeah,
because
sure. If you
yeah.
like,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
I'm cool
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, we'll just go through. So here's how it happened. Is that while we're sitting there together, and we're talking and we're going through what we have to do to launch and do all these things. I said, we've always talked about doing this project, which I had dubbed it the Zoomer project, and the Zoomer project was the fact that I was using Zoom every single day. He was using Zoom on a regular basis, and we were sitting there and they just canceled the NBA season. And I
Yeah.
said, this is not a normal situation. This is something that's happened. And we assembled together a team of people. And, they all have different backgrounds. They all have different things that they've done. But all of them have done remote work of one kind or another. And they'd all worked on Zoom. So we actually launched it on a Saturday, which was, I could give you, I'd have to look up the exact day, but we launched it on a Saturday on a Zoom call. So we,
Wow.
we, we literally launched it on, I think it was the 7th. Yeah, it was the 7th of March. And we launched it on the 7th of March. And we had people from, you know, 9 different time zones, 3 different continents, 5 different countries. And literally Gabe and I are sitting in a parking lot, and I said to these guys, look, here's the issue is most people are going to get forced to work from home and they have no idea how to do it. And they're going to fail because at that point in time, I was 30 months into using Zoom, and I basically called it the best that I had seen, but it left a lot of holes, and it's an experiment in terror.
I tried GoToMeeting and I tried WebEx. I owned a business for 11 years and, we did work for adjoining states like New York and New Jersey and Maryland and things like that. And I read your book, but I went through some of the same problems that you had with WebEx and GoToMeeting and some of those kind of things. And believe it or not, I just installed Zoom a couple days ago, and I like you, am thrilled with it.
Well, yeah, there's much lower friction. I mean, there's things that happen the way they do, and part of the motivation of writing the book wasn't just to say, rah, you should use Zoom, but how do you utilize this tool? And I just always, I always just view it as that most people never learn how to use these tools, and the more complicated these tools are, the more likely we don't ever actually get much out of them. And so that was the motivation to do it, was to just to help people out at this point in time. And really, we can go, we know as a team we can go farther than the book, but the book is a great intro, and at 99 cents on Amazon, it's not like it's going to break somebody's bank,
Right, exactly. So one of the big things is people need bandwidth, not just download speed, but upload speed, correct?
Yeah, it's a complicated question, because if you ask the guys at Zoom, they'll constantly tell you that it's a bandwidth problem. However, it's a bandwidth, but it's also what your computer is doing. So as an example, because of my schedule today and what I had to do, is that I wasn't able to, perfectly make my computer Zoom compatible, like we talk about in the book. And most people have no idea. I'm just talking about the average, user. I'm not talking about somebody's a power user, but just average user, as to how much is going on at any moment in their computer. Mm-hmm. So as we're recording this, just to give you an idea of what's going on, Windows has 281 processes going on right now, right. And 3,575 threads. So anybody who's out there can figure out what that is. Good for you. But what we do is we talk about how to make this work and how to put that together. But yeah, you need bandwidth, and you need to know how to test it. But you need more than Zoom. You need other tools. And just like today, we're going through and we're developing content as we're going through. And I find it interesting that so many companies will be sitting there, and they'll have a great meeting, right? Or a great sales presentation, and they never record it. Well, if you have something like Zoom and you present to a customer, guess what? You now capture that. So you have a piece of intellectual property. You have, a collective memory, right? Institutional memory, if you will. And that has lots of value to every company. And most small companies never capture this stuff. And we talk about the value of that. And I've talked about it for years, but Zoom allows us to capture it like right now, which is a great way to do it.
And you can actually use some of the services to capture text from your meeting, correct? And these are valuable notes you can have from those meetings.
Right. So one of the services that we use is a service called Otter, like the little furry critter Otter. Mm-hmm. And it's under otter.ai. So if anybody wants to go check them out, and just tell them that, hey, to survive the quarantine guys, or Mendocha sent you. But if you do that, what you're going to end up with is something pretty interesting, which is you can actually, for free, do a certain amount of transcription. But for a small amount of money, $10 a month, you can do 6,000 minutes of transcription a month.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And you, having been a radio guy for a number of years, I mean, imagine if you had taken all that radio that you've done and you had shoved it through. Now, it isn't perfect. It's artificial intelligence, which
sure. I've used it on Facebook and some YouTube also.
Yeah. And what I always like to tell everybody is that everybody likes to tell you that AI stands for artificial intelligence. I have another phrase, which is another idiot. So, right. Now we just got to deal with what we have. But the beauty of it is that can automate and transcribe things. So now we have a better, better handle on what we have. And especially if you're going to repurpose what you're doing, if you want to have, if you want to have that most excellent presentation that you put together and you capture that magic right there, how wonderful is that? And in fact, when we got to the end to get the book out, we literally had everybody, all the time zones, all the continents, all the places, and we did a read through of our own book. So everybody was on it. Everybody got to hear what it sounded like, and I make no bones about the fact that no, it wasn't the most polished piece of writing, but what it is it's a lot of different voices all trying to get to a common goal. And we were able to capture all of that, but also we were able to then transcribe all of that for our own sake to make the book better.
Now let's go off script a little bit
Sure.
here. And I'm trying to envision what it's going to look like when we're out of the woods here and things start to pick up again. And we're back out where we can't actually go out on the street and shake hands like we used to in sales and production and those kind of things. But there will be not a lot less competition. Let's say there's only 70% of the competition that we had before. How is that an advantage post-coronavirus?
It depends what you think the virus is going to do to how we operate after the virus has subsided. And there's two ways to think about it. One way is that this is a deflection, right? So a deflection, and a deflection means it moves away from its current course and then it kind of snaps back. And there's a lot of people who think there's going to be this snapback. And my experience with technology over the years is that the bigger change is what is called an inflection. An inflection means we change course and we're on a different path from here on out. The internet was a deflection. It wasn't a deflection. It was an inflection. It changed everything. Now it took 20 years to get there, but it's changed everything. Yeah. Well, this is an inflection point. And those who become good at and resourceful at this are going to be, I think, at an advantage. I think they're going to be able to communicate to more people. They're going to be able to respond faster, and they're going to be able to pull things together in a way that other people aren't. And the tools that we have today, no matter how good we think they are going to be significantly better in 2, 3, 5 years. They're chipping the edges off of this thing right now. And if you're out there and you're saying, which camp do I want to be in? You want to be on the people who say, when this thing, inflects, when it goes in a different direction, boy, I want to be there. I want to follow that direction and not be stuck in the old camp because, you're right. We're going to have 70% of the competition. Well, it might actually be where you're in the 20% and they're in the 80%. And they're not going to be anywhere near as successful as other people are going to be.
A lot of people are really feeling some anxiety about their job. There's high unemployment already. The unemployment rate is going up. You hear different stories about 10 to 20%. And I was talking with Cecilia, and she's in that position. She was offered a furlough. And, so people are, but what I found interesting in your book for people who are out of work and going back into the job interview field, Zoom can be an incredible tool and an advantage over people who can't do the interview through a service like Zoom.
Yeah, so one of the things that we put into the book, and that's a good point, John, is that we actually talk about from both sides. We talk about if you're going to hire somebody, how you would use Zoom, so that way you can see what they look like, how well they handle the technology, and how they come across. Now, is that as good as face-to-face? Well, I can tell you from my, playing poker professional days in Vegas, no, nothing beats being across the table and essentially hearing them wheeze, hearing them do whatever they're going to do.
Sure.
I mean, everybody's got a nervous tick or something you're going to see, but this is about as good as you're going to get, if not better. So we talk about it from that side, but we also flip it around. We talk about what you should do if you're going to go in for an interview and how you should make yourself as presentable as possible and make yourself as capable as possible. So that way, when you're being interviewed, you come across and you're relaxed and you know what you're going to do. In some ways, it's like, Tom Malash, one of our co-authors, talks about how, we're all putting on a broadcast. We're all actually now doing this. Well, today with YouTube, I mean, frankly, there's so much video going on that you might as well get comfortable with it because it's going to be a difference. As a side note, if you give me just one more quick brief moment, as a side note, is it the way we're going to find work going forward is different than we found work in the past. And that's going to be tough because there's going to be some people who are going to feel uncomfortable. But in this circumstance, when we needed to get the cover done for the book, and we needed to get it done like now, and what we did is we found a young woman who actually designed the cover. Actually, she designed more than one cover. So if you go to survivethequarantine.com, you'll see the cover that Amazon censored and wouldn't let us use. And then you'll see the one that we actually use. And we like both of them. But she is sitting in Venezuela.
Wow. And who is that? Is that somebody I've talked to already?
Oh, you've never talked to her because but she's sitting in Venezuela. Okay. And we're working to, we're getting her, her fee and everything, but she's working on this now. She's a native Spanish speaker, but she is good at graphics, and she laid out the 2 covers for the book. And the interesting thing about it is that, what is American money worth in Venezuela right now? Massive change. Now, if she can figure that out and connect and find us, well, what I'm just saying to everybody who's listening to your audience, who's out there, you got to think about that, because that means that you may not be working for somebody down the street. You may be working for somebody around the world. And that really does change and gets to what we talk a lot about, which is it's the same time, but a different place. We're working in that kind of paradigm. And frankly, it's a great story. And she did a fantastic job. And we plan on using her in the future. But there's an example of where we use the technology, which is the other part about doing this. We want to talk about stuff that we use.
Now there's 2 versions of the book, and I bought the version Survive the Quarantine: How to Thrive in the Post-Coronavirus Economy Through Remote Work. Now I figured it out that you couldn't use the word quarantine through Amazon, I guess, is why you have 2 versions of the book.
Well, they're the same book, but 2 different covers.
Right.
So I'll tell you the story. We got done. We drove ourselves to say, listen, we started on that Saturday, and we gave ourselves 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays, and then we were going to do the read through, and then we're going to work all day Sunday and Monday. And then we were going to post the book so it would be available on a Tuesday. And we got it up there, and we ended up having to do our own Kindle work, and we did all that stuff, and we ship it up there, and Amazon sends us and you'll understand this. They sent us a Dear John letter.
Sure.
Dear John.
I've had some of those warnings given to me before.
Well, and they said it doesn't meet our standards. So we said, what do you mean it doesn't meet your standards? Well, it doesn't meet our standards. By the way, here's a link. Go read our standards. And if you read our standards, you'll see ... well, why it doesn't meet our standards. Okay. So I said, all right. Now, again, we're pretty motivated team. So we went out and I read all the standards and I read all the stuff. And we couldn't figure out what worked and what didn't work. And it said, listen, you can't make, ridiculous claims. So we weren't claiming we were going to cure anybody. You can't say this, you can't say that. Now, I said, okay, that's interesting. And then we got to the community standards rule, and essentially that's a grab bag. Now, we wrote a multi-page response to them. We wrote a detailed response, point by point, why this is important, what we're doing, sent it in, and we got yet another email saying, "Dear John, so sad, too bad." Now, Gabe, being very driven, motivated guy, he found a phone number to get a hold of somebody at Kindle. Gets her on the phone, and she goes, "Well, okay, I'll see what I can do." And we sent another response, not the same one. We sent another response, detailed response. And they rejected us again. Now, I'll share with all the listeners, and I don't want anybody to be offended, but this is up on Amazon right now. Remember, we're under the community standards, so saying coronavirus, saying quarantine, saying those things, that's a little salacious. But here's a book that's approved on Amazon right now. Now, I know that I don't want to get other authors more money, but here you go. The title is Sex Starved Marriage, 33 demonstrated positions, plus 14 best tips on how to last longer, make her scream, and be the best lover in her life.
Oh, those are okay.
And that's $4.99. And I'll tell you, I mean, of course, I bought it only, I told my wife I bought it just for research purposes only.
That's right.
But that was allowed through. Now,
Sure.
All I can say for in my mind is that, I mean, okay, the positions, oh, okay, the tips, okay, but the make her scream and be the best lover in her life, that seems like pretty unsubstantiatable claims, doesn't it? All for $5. And yet,
$5.
Yeah, $4.99. Yeah, I mean, we should just put a link in there. But so what we did is we got very frustrated, and we went back and we said, okay, we're talking about remote work, and we came up with, I think, a very good positive title, which is Remote Work for a Better World, and it's all about how you can stay sane in this crazy time, and how you can actually go be productive and have some things happen. So it's worked out well. The website has survived the quarantine. You can buy the book from there, or you can go to Amazon and buy it as Remote Work for a Better World. And frankly, we have it at 99 cents, and away you go.
Now, for you and I, we're used to this kind of thing, but it caused a lot of anxiety for some people to, get in front of a camera or just get in front of a computer to do this kind of thing. Your advice is don't panic, but practice, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. My advice is simply, if you can talk to somebody across the table, you can then get comfortable enough and you can talk into a camera. If that's too much, then just do the audio version until you get more comfortable. And really the point of it is just to learn that if you're going to communicate with people, even though we live in this, world of texting and Facebook and tweeting and all of that, frankly, the best way to communicate is you can talk to somebody and see them and say, there they are. And
what do you think the evolution of this is going to be? I mean, it's already available on everybody's cell phone, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So you can use a platform like Zoom on an iPhone, an Android phone. You can use it on all the tablets. You can use it on just about any desktop or laptop. I think the evolution becomes that businesses know that if you want to take this to the next level, that you outfit your employees with the tools that they need. And that isn't just giving them a laptop and saying, well, go out and figure out how to do it. But it's giving them the training, making sure they have a high-speed link. I mean, if you want to have better communications, you're going to make sure you have to have a high-speed internet link.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand also that Murphy, though this isn't in the book, but I'll share it for all the listeners, is that if you don't know what Murphy's Law is, then you haven't used technology.
Sure.
But my saying is Murphy always rides for free. My wife bought me a T-shirt that says, Murphy's Law School. And it's funny because I was walking through an airport, and I was just sitting there with this, and the guy looked at it, and he just saw Murphy, and it looks like a T-shirt that one would wear from a law school. He goes, is that your alma mater? And I said, every day, buddy, every day. Exactly.
Um, there's no instruction manual on how to do these things anymore. So, people have to, actually play with this software, maybe go to YouTube and get some instruction on how to use the software. What do you think?
Well, I think that those are good things, and we try to give people step by step. We try to talk to them about what you can do and you can't do. We try to give them an insight and lay some things out in a more simple fashion. There's a learning curve to everything in life, and technology has its own share. The real key is that you want to become strong enough, good enough in this that you can call up a guy like John, who's sitting in Philly or the Philadelphia area, and I could be here in California, and we could have a face-to-face discussion, and away you go. And once you accept that this is the standard, this is what people think, now you know that the world is starting to change, and the technology starts to fade into the background. And the nicest story that we got from this is that we put the book out there, and the first review that we got was from a 78-year-old grandmother who was so despondent because she couldn't see her children, her grandchildren, her friends. And she reads the book, right? This isn't designed for her. This is designed for high charging, want to go out and make things happen, AA type people, right? Yeah. And she sent in the nicest note, and we were able to contact her. And what she said is, look, she's doing her Bible study through this. She's got all of her senior friends up on Zoom. She's seeing her grandkids. They're sharing a meal. Because they can put prop up the laptop, and they're doing all these things. Now it seems odd and strange, but it's no different than 100 years ago when somebody would say, oh wow, you can pick up a phone and call anybody over a distance, and you're talking right to somebody. All of that changes how we operate, and I think where it goes is that we all become better at communicating in spite of the current situation and then beyond.
Yeah, I would imagine picking up a telephone in that time caused the same amount of anxiety that this does. I have a cell phone. I have 6 computers. I have all kinds of, but what I decided on was the best laptop that had everything integrated as far as the camera. I'm in radio, so I have various microphones and cameras and all those kind of things. So,
sure.
But, to simplify, I used the most simple laptop. It's not the most perfect thing. And, I'm a geek, so I'm going to try and tweak this thing to make it bigger and better, and maybe some green screen in the back. And you use a green screen?
So I use a green screen. In fact, I use one, and we talk about it in the book. It's by a company called Elgato, and they're actually out of Germany. And it's actually for gamers, because gamers love this thing.
Great.
And obviously we use it to shamelessly promote the books and other things. So I also have other backgrounds that show my logo. There's a lot of things you can do with this, and that's just a little piece of it. One of the things for those who are very adventurous, because we didn't want to just have the basic, we cover a big wide range of things, is we have in there what we call the silver bullet. And the silver bullet in the book is really talking about how you can go out and build what's called the Linux distribution, a Ubuntu, and it fits on a nice little USB key, and you can actually boot up your laptop or boot up your desktop or boot up a Mac. Now, when I say that, this is not for the, I don't imagine it's from the 78-year-old grandma, but it's for people who want to have a different experience. And if I didn't have back-to-back calls, I would have rebooted into Linux, and we would have been operating off of that. But what it does is it actually clears the decks, because one of the things that the guys at Zoom wouldn't tell me is that the PC itself creates, or the Mac itself creates, its own issues and problems, and away you go. And then the other thing that I would say to somebody as a tidbit is that do not get sucked into, we need super high definition video. It would be great to get all that kind of broadcast stuff, but you know what? Let's first get where we can see the person reliably,
Right.
and connect, and don't let the technology be the barrier to getting your communications done.
Let's talk about meetings that people are having. Corporate meetings, Monday morning meetings are kind of dull. in most meetings, what are your guidelines for doing meetings through Zoom meeting?
The beauty of having Zoom is that, so everybody is now remote in today's coronavirus situation. So let's say we have 8 or 10 people. Well, if you're the person organizing the meeting, you should be able to clearly state the purpose of the meeting and tell everybody. And the reason for that is to set the stage. The other thing is that if you're recording it and we're going to do transcription, we still want people to take notes, but we're going to be able to capture those ideas very quickly, which you can't do usually. Most conference rooms that I've been in are not set up to record. So my suggestion is that we're going to record those. Come in with an agenda, know what you're trying to accomplish. Everybody should have their own list of things that they want to talk about, and try to make sure that we keep the meeting moving. What usually happens in these meetings, and I've been through many of them in my years of working in the corporate space, first as an employee, then as a consultant, is that there's a lot of looking up.
Sure.
Because you're trying to figure out if the light fixtures or the suspended ceiling will support your weight, so you can hang yourself before this damn thing just keeps going.
Exactly.
Because it's just like, this is
Exactly.
terrible. And I understand that. In fact, part of my drive to be at Zoom is that I do a weekly sales meeting. Actually, it's a webinar that I do. And what I do is I actually talk about a topic. And I deem it for people who either don't have a sales meeting or they have one they hate, which usually covers 100% of the population. And I've now done 813 of these. And about 30 months ago, when I started getting this thing called Zoom working, surprisingly, people said, geez, John, we'd like to have you come on and do a video version. Now, I had done most of them with just a headset, right? It's like radio, right? I'm doing a not a broadcast, but a narrowcast. And it was great. And then they said, no, we got to have you do that. So now I've got to trim my beard. I got to wear a nice shirt,
Exactly. Actually putting on, some makeup for your computer at home is not what I had in mind when I started my broadcast career.
Exactly. So, but what I can tell you is that now, having gone to the video format, the interaction with the group has gone up significantly, and they connect. So we go in with, we have your meeting, we go in with a purpose, we have an agenda, we have everybody come in and bring in what they want to discuss and talk about, and then you do a wrap up and say, okay, let's make sure that everybody knows what has been decided and what we're going to do. And never leave that meeting place without knowing what everybody needs to do, because it's a mistake if you do.
Now, for managers, that might be an advantage where they can record and roll back tape to see who's paying attention. What do you think of that?
Well, I've always said, if you want to find some of the most creative writers in the world, just find out when salespeople are forecasting next quarter sales, because you get some great fiction going on there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Once
again, the website is survivethequarantine.com, and we're talking with John Paul Mendocha. John, your online image is something that you can cultivate through Zoom, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, one of the nice parts about using Zoom is that you can have a Zoom meeting And no, we wouldn't do this today because this is a private session, but we could, through just a couple of connections, we could be live on Facebook and broadcasting to the world. And that's a good thing. You could actually we could send this off to YouTube and be broadcasting. So we can do a lot of those things. If you're a small company and you have a specific message, you literally could build it up and do a presentation and start doing broadcasts. And think about, because you've been around broadcasts for years, right? How
Yes,
much
that's
would it
correct.
cost you, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to try to do a broadcast, just broadcast out? I mean, we're talking a lot of money. You got to go to the studio. You're going to have to do, but now you can do it for, frankly, the cost of a laptop, a good microphone, and away you go. You want to improve your lighting if you can, and do what you possibly can. But you can actually, get your message out to a great number of people, and there's lots of positives by doing that. And the other part is that you want to become more comfortable with this, because the more comfortable you become, customers, prospects are going to want to check these things out ahead of time. They're going to want to see what you look like, what you sound like, what's going on. And we live in a culture where people are going to watch that. And what they're trying to do now, and I'm going to say this, and I'll leave John out of this, but I have more of a face for radio, and I own a mirror. I understand, but it has helped my business a lot to go to video, because people will say, I now know what this guy looks like. I know what he sounds like because I could go listen to his audio, but I now know what he looks like, and I can have a better connection because of that. And this is going to be the direction we're all going to go in a very big way, because why wouldn't we?
I have the hair for video. That's about all I have at this point. But tell us about your book launch, John. I'm really pleased with the interview that we had last time about Position to Win.
So I had picked March the 17th, which gave us a lot of runway and did a lot of work. And I picked March the 17th because it was St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day is important, not because I'm Irish, but because, being a Catholic, when you get to confirmation, you got to pick another name, right? And since my name is John Paul, I thought, well, Patrick would be great, John Paul Patrick. So I figured that's going to be my hook, and that's what we're going to talk about. But what we ended up with is that gale force wind in our face, and we launched the book anyway. And of course, Murphy would come along, and we couldn't get the technology to work, and we did all those things. But the book launch was fine, because we ended up with a lot of people who had heard about the book. So the book is doing well, not as well as I'd like to. So what we're going to do is take a page out of Airbnb. So anybody out there who has tried to do something recently and it didn't work the way you thought it would be, I don't want you to ever say to yourself, oh, we missed our chance. We only have one chance. Can only do this once in life. If you don't know the story, Airbnb launched not once, not twice, but 3 times. And each time they launched, it was as if they had never talked about it before. And it took 3 times to get it started. So we're going to end up going back and launching again. But the book is doing well. It's out in paper. It's out in Kindle, and you can go check on it. Also, because of that, and because we had that going, when we put together Remote Work for a Better World, we understood some things that we would not have understood. And at times we have flirted with being #1 in our category in Amazon, which is really nice. And there's nothing better than being able to actually know that you're not only your #1, but more importantly, that you're affecting people's lives in a very positive way. So I really appreciate the fact that John was one of the early interviews that I got to do. I thought it was a really good interview, and it really felt good. And we saw it in the fact that people were coming to the website, which is positiontowinbook.com. And they would come over and say, wow, this has been excellent. So, I do appreciate, John, you having me on and doing so well with it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Once again, the book for people who are interested. You can get it at positiontowinbook.com. Getting back to the quarantine book, I saw Appendix A in this book, and I thought it should be on its own chapter. It's a guide on how people should actually reboot their computer and some of the things they should do before they get into a Zoom meeting.
Right. Yeah. And we're believers that you should follow a step-by-step process, so that way you have the best possible meeting. We did leave out the, dousing yourself with holy water. We left that part out.
Yes.
though that's not a bad step,
It's not bad. No.
Bless yourself. You can always use an extra something, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, we put that in. Now it's interesting because we debated back and forth where that should fit, and we ended up putting it as an appendix so it could stand out by itself. But what it is it step by step how to go out and get great results, because that's really what we want. You want to get great results from every meeting that you do and everything that you do. Any business that you're in today, any encounter that you're in today, you can actually use Zoom to stay connected and talk to people in a way that just a few months ago, very few people actually knew how to do. And without a lot of effort, you can get some spectacular results and connect with people.
What is Ruzuku?
So Ruzuku is a platform in which, so let's say you take all of your broadcasts that you've done over the years, and you would go become a Ruzuku customer, and you could put everything up on YouTube if you want. But in the case of what I do for my consulting, I like it to be a little bit more specialized. So Ruzuku essentially is where I can go build curriculums. And as an example, I have a Ruzuku course. Ruzuku is the platform. I have a course called Who is John Paul Mendocha? So if somebody wants to know what it's going to be like to work with me, we would give them a login. They could go watch videos. They could go read some things. But this way, I know that somebody has done that. I know that they're there. Now, if somebody says, oh, I'm really interested in talking to you. I know this has never happened to you because you're dashing and charming. But somebody says, I really want to do something. And then you send them some information, and then you contact them later. And it's as if you had never talked to them before. They had that Men in Black flash. They couldn't remember anything.
Right.
So what we did is we set it up in Ruzuku. So we talk about Ruzuku because if you're a company, we suggest that you find ways to archive this material. And it's very easy to sit there and say, well, now I've got to get the IT guy, or man or woman, I get an IT person, and then I got to set up this. And I says, well, for just a few bucks a month, you go out and you set it up. And now let's say you're going to have a new employee, and you set up a series of videos, and you say to the new employee, here you go through and watch them. Now you want to talk about the fact that you can now see if they clicked on it, if they watched all the way through, if they bailed out, what they did. Now, you don't necessarily want to tell them that up front, but you can actually see what it is. So Ruzuku is a nice place to put it. In fact, my weekly call, which is called Speed Start Monday, is I've done 813. We have about 300 of those episodes up, and we have about 500 in the vault. But right now, I have. Whenever somebody signs up, they say, well, geez, how do I get to the early ones? I said, why don't you if you listen to 300 and something of these and you need more of me, well, okay, we'll load some more on there. But it's a very nice, robust platform, which is one of the things that the mistake is that people want to figure out how to invent something on their own.
Do you have a full website that encompasses all the things that you're doing, including your Monday morning meetings and the books?
So if you go to positiontowinbook.com, you can find out about my other activities. You can find out about other things that I do, and that's really where that lives. The Save the Quarantine book. By the way, Save the Quarantine book. If you go to that and you go to apply, there's no obligation. You go to apply. We literally ask you a series of questions. These are the same questions I asked somebody if they're going to virtualize their business, if they're going to become a remote meeting expert. So you can go there and you can fill that out, and we carefully look at it, and we give you our opinion and say what that looks like. So so those are two places to go, and we also added, since you and I spoke, is that at positiontowinbook.com we have a quiz, so you can take a quiz, no obligation, and you can find out how well you are positioned or where you are positioned.
Positioning, that's a buzzword around the office now, John.
Well, I'm glad, because it's and especially today, when we get to the other side of this pandemic, how well you are positioned is going to, think about it this way. Somebody took the very carefully crafted board and took all the pieces and flipped it up in the air, and then the pieces come landing back down. So how you figure out how you position yourself after this, there's going to be a lot of shakeup, and that gives people anxiety. Now, the cure for anxiety in that regard is to have a very clear idea of what you want to do and how to improve your skills. If you're not improving your skills today, if you're not thinking about what you need to do to improve your skills, sadly, you're missing an amazing opportunity. Sitting around, wringing your hands, clutching your pearls, being nervous, doesn't make you more successful.
I have a really good feeling about this. I'm not sure. It's like an intuition that once everything breaks open, not with just the Zoom tool, but other tools, and I really am optimistic about the economy rebounding and what that's going to look like. And how do you think I did, John? I don't like the reflection on my glasses, so I'm going to have to find something to solve that. But other than that, how do you think I sounded with my configuration here?
I think you sound good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you can do, since obviously you have prescription glasses, is that you can go to you can actually buy glass that is not reflective.
Like on Zenny or one of those.
Yeah, or go to the optics ophthalmologist and say, look, I need these. So when I'm because if you go and watch somebody who's on television and they're doing broadcast and they don't have a reflection, it's not because they're a vampire. It's because they have they have special coating on the lens.
John, what's your plans for the future now?
Well, it's interesting because this opened up a big seam in things. Remote work is a tip of an iceberg. You can actually go out and start thinking about where we go from here. And frankly, we're working on keeping the book updated, and then thinking about how to help companies on the other side, and even now, but on the other side in particular, get to what we call virtualization, because virtualization offers some massive upside benefits for companies and individuals. And just a very simple reminder is that great fortunes are always made and begun in very difficult times. So will you be that person who makes that great fortune happen?
Well, we wish your family the best, and we want you to stay safe out there. And for everybody listening to the broadcast, we hope you heed the warnings and take all the precautions that not only your state, but the federal government are issuing right now. And John, it was so great to talk to you.
John, it's great talking to you, and all your listeners. I wish you the absolute best. And the thing to always remember is that it is how we react more important than the circumstance that we find ourselves in.
Once again, the book is Survive the Quarantine, How to Thrive in the Post-Coronavirus Economy Through Remote Work. And the website, once again, is survivethequarantine.com. We'll talk to you. I think we'll talk to you in a couple months, John.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Take care.
You too.
Folks, when we come back, we have more for you on Ralston Live right here. It's Ralston Live. We'll be right back. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. I'll send you a copy of the recording, and
Awesome.
you should have it either later today or sometime tomorrow, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, you
Uh,
take care. Thanks,
all right,
John.
you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.